Welcome to The Human Code, the podcast where technology meets humanity, and the future is shaped by the leaders and innovators of today. I'm your host, Don Finley, inviting you on a journey through the fascinating world of tech, leadership, and personal growth. Here, we delve into the stories of visionary minds who are not only driving technological advancement, but also embodying the personal journeys and insights that inspire us all. Each episode, we explore the intersections where human ingenuity meets the cutting edge of technology, unpacking the experiences, challenges, and triumphs that define our era. So, whether you're a tech enthusiast, an inspiring entrepreneur, or simply curious about the human narratives behind the digital revolution, you're in the right place. Welcome to The Human Code. All right, welcome. We're back with Jesal Gadhia and having an amazing conversation today around AI, software development, personal knowledge systems, self-improvement, and writing. I got to say, all of these things hit on like notes that I love. So I'm very excited to be sitting here with you today.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me.
Hey, not a problem. So what I'd love to jump in on is I see that AI is this technology that it's like upending a lot of industries and it's causing both a lot of excitement and also a bit of fear. One project that you shared with us that I'd love to dive into it to first is your project about using AI and personal growth. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that project? And then we can dive into like how you got there as well.
Yeah. I've done a couple of kind of experiments with the AI, and I'll talk about two of them. One was in my previous company, I had a coach. I used to be a better up, and I was talking about my career options and where I want to go. I was feeling a little bit stuck. So my coach was like, "Hey, why don't you imagine different, like playing out different lives for yourself and just see what that might look like. And you can have an opportunity to place yourself doing something different in a completely different life." And I was like, that's an interesting thought experiment. And at the same time, this whole AI thing was taking off and people are creating all these like image generation tools. So I found one that kind of created like a profile picture of you, but in different like avatars, different costumes. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I just plugged in my photos. You have to provide it like training photos, and out it's out like 100 different like personas. Like you as a doctor, you as an astronaut, a chef. So I was like, oh, this is actually a lot of fun. I can look through all of these personas and imagine what would it be like to be a chef or an astronaut or whatever. And I posted that on LinkedIn and it blew up and got a ton of like responses, and people started to talk about like the kind of using AI to do like self-discovery and like coaching. So that was an interesting one.
That's actually really cool. How how did it feel to see yourself in those different personas? And then yeah, really, let's start there.
Yeah, no, it's super fascinating, right? Because you can always imagine these things, but now you have this visual aid that can generate a whole world for you. And actually, I just bought a little storybook for my son that was a personalized story using AI generated images. So it like places him in like him being like a chef. And I'm like in his restaurant, like as eating the food that he's making. Like this is all like visual. So it's like mind blowing now that the things they can do, especially like world building based on your imagination. So
That is so awesome. And I went through something similar. I wrote a children's book for my niece and nephews as well and used their images and Midjourney to create
oh
that combination. And so it is, we're hitting on a point of extreme personalization that
yeah.
can be really cool. What I really love is what you were talking about personal development. Where do you see AI helping out in other ways inside
Yeah.
of
I
like the
mean,
personal journey?
yeah, there's so many different ways, right? One is AI can, and this is probably the obvious one, is AI can act as like a coach where you can run situations by it and say, hey, I have this thing coming up at work. Like how do I like navigate it? Can you act as like a professional coach or something like that? And I've done that many times. And it's even me like, even though I know like what are my options, it's like really great to like just bounce ideas by something and it tells you options. So that's one way to do it. The other thing I've tried is, and this is also another, goes back to your initial question about AI experiments. This one is when I started working professionally, I had this habit of taking corpus amount of notes about my day. Every day I'd take a note about like what are my priorities, what got done, what happens. I had a per day note. And like it was just good for me in that moment to look at it. Okay, let me look at my past week. Let me grab whatever like pending items to the week forward. But I didn't really think about much about that. And then when the AI hype cycle hit and people were starting to build up these tools, it struck me that, oh my gosh, I have this whole data mine of notes going all the way back to 2016 or even beyond. And I could just feed this to the AI and like can ask questions. So I built this little like retrieval augmented generation tool based on my own data set. And I started to ask questions like, what were my top accomplishments in 2016? And it spit out like these top 5 things I had like totally forgotten about. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can like put this in my resume. I had no idea that I'd done these. Or what were my top learnings from the previous 5 years? And like just now the power of the notes comes alive and you can start to extract insights from the notes in a very synthesized way. So that was like another interesting way you can leverage AI to get insights and like kind of coach yourself with prompt reflection on your learnings.
That is incredible. So now I'm going to bring us back into what you're doing on a daily basis. I know you're a thoughtful. What is thoughtful about? And then how does your role play into that?
Yeah. So our mission there is to remove a lot of the administrative burden that is there in the healthcare industry. And we're specifically at the moment targeting the revenue cycle. So everything that happens from a moment a patient walks into a provider to the point the provider gets paid. There's so many steps there from like eligibility verification, insurance verification, submitting the claim, processing the claim, reconciling how much they got paid. So many intricate steps. It requires a ton of manual labor, super difficult to hire people and train people on those flows. And as they grow, the volume increases and also their kind of error rates increase. And they don't, a lot of times don't have time to go back to a claim and correct what was wrong with the claim. And so they're like leaving money on the table. It's a hair on fire situation. They're like, oh my gosh, I have so much workload. I have so many things pending that I need to correct. And it's just, don't worry about it. Let me come in and like, let's look at all your workflows. Let's look at all the systems you're dealing with and we can just automate all of it. And so that they can go back to focusing on their patients, focusing on some of the day-to-day inquiries they're getting, and then just focusing more on the human side and less on the administrative side. So that's what I'm up to right.
That's absolutely fantastic. And I have a guess that you've been knowledgeable about AI for longer than the 2 years that it's basically been in the kind of the zeitgeist of culture in the generative AI.
Yeah.
How have your views changed or modified in the last couple of years as far as where we'll be applying AI? And how do you see that playing into both your product portfolio as well as internally how you run your team?
Yeah. So yeah, you guessed it. I've been using AI in multiple companies going back to the decade.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at all the tech hype cycles, there used to be like the cloud, the mobile development, the database, big data. If you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody was like, oh yeah, we were going to use like this big data technology or we're going to move to the cloud. And the conversation was like rotating around that. And now it's just like afterthought, like, oh yeah, of course we use Amazon's big data or like we use mobile and we're on the cloud and whatnot. Right. So I think the AI is probably going to be going through that phase right now in the hype cycles. Everyone's, oh yeah, we were using AI, everything that has AI in it. But if fast forward a few years, I think it's just going to be an afterthought and people are just going to use that as part of their tech stack that, oh yeah, there's an application for AI for your real world problem. And of course we're using it. It's not going to be so front and center. Also, I think right now there's a lot of concern about, like, oh, will there be a need for developer? I just saw a demo yesterday about a new AI called Devin that was like AI programmer. And a lot of people are like freaking out. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do with my career? But I think it's just going to be like, you could do more of it less. I think that's going to be true. Like a one engineer could probably be a lot more productive, maybe have AI like programmer by their side that executes on their ideas, but you still need engineers and you still need somebody to drive the AI, right? So I think, yeah, that's how I see it playing out.
Yeah, it's like the extension of going from assembly language to a higher level language. And now we have just another further extension of how we translate ideas into working code.
Yeah. Abstractions. Yeah.
Exactly.
Creating abstractions. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now, how do you so basically you see team size will likely get smaller.
Hmm.
You're probably gonna the role of the engineer will probably play a little bit more of a creative pursuit. We're
Yeah.
spending more time in that creative
Hmm.
aspect. Like I know today we tell our teams use coding assistants as much as possible,
Hmm.
but also treat it like an intern, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to trust implicitly everything that it produces. So make sure that you follow up on it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And also like that, to that point, I think it's going to be very important for engineers to start thinking about how can they become AI proof in the marketplace, so to speak. And that means like developing a very well-rounded skill set. And if you're into like platform engineering and that kind of stuff, maybe you need to like augment that skill set or have a flex so that you understand the business side and then you understand like business strategy. Or if you're like really into product engineering, maybe you can flex to understand like what does design thinking mean? What does product thinking mean? So I think you can like the engineers will have to develop flex to understand like different functional areas and different professions so they can become more well-rounded and adaptable. And it's just not, you're not just somebody who writes code. I think if you're just somebody who writes code, then I think your job is at risk, so to speak. But if you're a well-rounded, if you're thinking about the business, or if you're thinking about the product and thinking about the design, the user experience and the technology and the engineering aspects, then I think you're like really in demand in the marketplace.
Absolutely. How has your approach to hiring changed over the last few years, or has it, as to the people that you want to see on your own team?
It hasn't changed a whole lot, honestly. I think I've always looked for that well-rounded engineers who understand the business, who understand the product. And also, I've worked in early stage to mid stage startups. So I think that is a very important skill set to have. If you're just thinking about like writing code and just shipping code in a bunker, then that's not going to really work out. So I think that skill is always going to be in demand, no matter what the hype cycle is. If you understand the business, you have to think like an entrepreneur. And if you think like an entrepreneur, you're going to know exactly what to prioritize, how to use your time and where to make the biggest impact with your time.
You and I share a very similar thought around this. I was interviewed yesterday on a podcast and they asked me, the guy asked me flat out, he's like, you have a lot of interest and you seem to be a little bit about me, right? Like I have my own business. I actually have another startup as well. And then additionally, I also have a painting career.
Right? Is that your painting behind you?
So not the one directly behind me. I would
Okay.
love to take credit, but I definitely take inspiration. And there's two other paintings that you'll see over on this side that are
Okay.
hidden by that plant.
Yeah, I see it hidden behind it. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But we were going over that. And then I've also done coaching and some other things. And the guy asked me, in order to be successful, I've always heard that you need to be laser focused on one thing. And I'm like, I get that. Findustries itself is laser focused on being the best that it can be in that one thing. But the people that work in the business need to be well rounded. Creativity doesn't happen in a narrow slit. We get inspiration in the shower. We get inspiration on our walks. We get inspiration from our family and our friends. And so what I'm hearing you say is like, you've got to create your life in a way that isn't just narrow in that one thing. Because if AI is going to eat some jobs, it's going to eat the narrow ones first. So
Yeah. That's the easiest ones to eat them up, automate them. So I think, and also questionable if I think there's a desire for most folks to do more creative work, more fulfilling work. So how do you do that? Yeah, exposing yourself to like multiple different things and also learning how to learn. That's going to be a very important skill to build as well. And I think that kind of also touches on my other passion, which is knowledge management, which we can probably get into and talk about.
I would love to dive into. I would say that I'm a novice on the knowledge management path. What advice would you have to people who are either A, just getting into it, or what are the benefits that you see from being diligent on your knowledge management?
Yeah. So going back to that AI example, right? Back then, I didn't even know that I was going to have any benefit out of code writing those notes. But fast forward 2022, I was able to gather so many insights out of it. So I think that's a really perfect example. If you start writing, that's a way to even work out your thoughts in the immediate term. Like you can start to see patterns that, oh, maybe I worked on this thing and this matches another problem that I wrote about a couple of weeks ago or months ago. So that's some of the like short-term benefits. This is like creating mental clarity and clarity about how do you execute on a problem. But then on a longer term, you start to see connections between the things you're thinking about. And then you can start to leverage AI to actually do insights, give you insights out of that corpus of data. So it's short term, just it's very tactical to managing to-do lists, making sure you don't forget important things, making sure you have reminders. If you're just starting out, I'd say don't create a lot of pressure. Just use it for your immediate tactical needs. Use it as a to-do list, as a scrappy note-taking tool, and then work your way. Then you can maybe say, okay, maybe I want to write a little proposal, and then you can start to outline your ideas in there. And then maybe come the next day and like flesh out that outline, right? So use it in a low pressure, no pressure way. And I think you start to see the magic in the long term.
And I'd imagine that your process has morphed over time, whether it's refined or sometimes I find myself going back to simplicity versus complexity.
Yeah. Like I said, I was using it for very like short term tactical reasons.
Yeah.
And then over time, I started to realize that, oh, wait, I could write long kind of formats like proposals or blog posts. And one of the key unlocks for me was it allowed me to think in parallel in multiple threads. In a very low pressure way. My old way of thinking was like, oh, I have this idea. I'll sit down and then start writing in a Word doc. And I was like, oh, I have to like finish it. I don't, where do you go from here? But now my new way of thinking is, oh, no pressure. I'll just write a one line inspiration and then forget about it. And then I'll have another idea and I'll start another note or write another line of inspiration. So now I have two tracks going on. And then the next day, maybe I'm inspired on one of the tracks and I'll expand that into an outline. And then the next month, I'm maybe inspired on that first one and I'll go back to that one and go, wait, I have more ideas on this one. And then, so I just go back and forth between like multiple different like ideas. And some of them turn out to be like LinkedIn posts. Some of them turn out to be blog posts. Some of them turn out to be like work proposals, like Jira tickets, epics. So, so different modalities, but it's just the same concept. You just do something as soon as an idea pops up, you write it down and then expand it down the line.
I love that. So it's basically like creating a second brain type of
Exactly.
approach for yourself and
Yeah.
freeing your mind just to be, I'm putting words in your mouth right now, but more present with what you're
Yeah.
doing because you're dropping that and you're saying, look, the inspiration was there, run with it. And I'll run with it.
Yeah. I don't have to get bogged down with those ideas and, oh my gosh, like, well, don't have to carry that weight of working them out in my head. Right. I
Yeah,
can just download that into a software and then forget about it. Memory wipe. I'll get new inspiration and then repeat the same process again.
that's fantastic. So what to the youth of the world today, right? Like we're going through a time of significant change, both socially, culturally, and technology wise. We're seeing a lot. Do you have any advice for the next generations coming through?
Oh man, I think about that from the context of my son and my wife and I talk about it. Like he's going to be entering such a different world than I entered. And when I entered the workforce, like we felt like, oh my gosh, we had so much power. Like we can look up information. But now for the first time, I think you're going to have to deal with like technology replacing human judgment. And that's something that I don't think we've ever seen before. Like we've seen technology acting as a tool, always the human driving the tool, but now there's this thing like replacing human judgment. So that opens up a whole new world. Like that AI programmer, how does the next generation come in and deal with that? And I think like that goes back to what I was saying, like learning how to learn is going to be the biggest thing because you have to constantly reinvent yourself. If you're stagnating or if you're like thinking that, oh, after my university or whatever, I'm going to stop learning, I think that's no longer going to work. That used to work, but has like progressively become less and less of an option. So I
Yeah.
think that's going to be the biggest thing the next generation is going to have to deal with right out the gate.
Which is, we share a similar idea around that. And I also saw that the Minister of Finance for Singapore got in front of their, I believe, parliament and said that he's putting together a program to provide a university education for people in their 40s to go after a second career.
Oh, wow.
And one of the things that I found as a side benefit of this is now you have an educational platform where you have people in their 20s who are going through, but now you have essentially seasoned veterans as well that
hmm
are coming on
hmm
board and now sharing that space and that expectation that you're likely going to be making a mid-career change in some sort of career. I know if you
hmm
asked me 10 years ago, I thought it was going to be the manual labor truck drivers, like that was going to be the significant disruption that we would be seeing. But you and I are talking today about, is the coder getting replaced? And
Yeah, I was just joking with one of my friends yesterday. They're like, maybe like if you're a plumber, that's probably the safest
yeah, it seems like a
profession right now.
really safe
Yeah.
career.
And anything that like requires like physical work and using like your brain and creativity, I think that's a really great profession right now. That's like the AI proof until the robots come, right?
Until the
Until those
robot.
come.
And my favorite part was Amazon has their warehouses are almost fully automated, right? But they still need
Yeah.
pickers because there isn't a good robotics solution to
Yeah.
something that can generally grab.
hmm
This is the one skill that we have that is
hmm
becoming difficult for robotics to take over.
Yeah, that's coming though, because I saw the demo by that robotics company, Figure
Yep.
Robot, and they had a little interesting breakthrough where they could teach the robot real time how to do tasks. Up until now, you'd have to have a machine learning model that understands or teaches the robot how to do maybe make coffee or
Yep.
iron your clothes. But in their demo, it was like they showed the robot the concept of a coffee maker, how you make coffee. And that was just one shot. The robot looked at it, understood that concept. And the next time it could make the coffee for you. So you can now train the robot real time in all sorts of tasks, like folding laundry or like ironing clothes. And so, I mean, I'm thinking like in 10 years, people are probably going to have robots in their household, like as an appliance. You buy a washer dryer, maybe you have a robot as an appliance.
I
So
would absolutely love that
yeah.
to really help out around the house. What other solutions would you like to see?
You mean in AI and robotics?
AI, robotics, just general problems that maybe your business has. It doesn't even have to
Well,
be
I mean,
big.
yeah, I'll tell you a more of a general take. I think it would be interesting to push the frontiers of science with AI and robotics, drug discovery, discovery of new physics. I think that's where you have the biggest impact that benefits humanity. But from a kind of a company perspective, from a kind of professional industry perspective, I think there's a lot of interesting things AI can unlock, especially around insights when you're doing, even in our company, when we replace a human with a machine that's doing tasks, like for example, claim processing, it's seeing all that data. It's recording all that data. So now it can actually not only just do the tasks, but it can actually get better. So over time, now it's getting better at something. It's also developing more insights. Hey, you processed 1,000 claims last month. And out of that, this is the trend I pick up on. Your patient demographic is changing over time. So now it can start to give you insights that you never had before. And it's on top, it's doing the work, it's nailing the work. So that I think you're gonna see that more and more as you run data, as you run processes through AI, it's gonna collect all that data and give you back some interesting insights.
Interesting. Which is also the benefit of having a person do the job, right? Because having a person do the job, they can see what needs to change, or even if they're handling this middle
Mhm.
component, they can tell you the quality of the data coming in. Whereas initially machines, error processing, right, wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
give you that insight. Now we're going to see much
Yeah.
more robust insights coming through.
Yeah. That's I think the next level unlock. I'm sure a lot of companies are working on. the step one is just doing the work, automating the work. The step two is adding a layer of intelligence on top of it.
Wisdom. And it
Mm.
seems that the AI will continue to push
Yeah,
us up
that the
the pyramid.
wisdom layer, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's gonna be super interesting, a little scary too. But yeah, we'll have to see how that all plays out because now the AI not only has judgment but has wisdom. That's like the ultimate frontier, right? Then you're talking AGI at that point. So
Yeah. Which is an exciting time. It's the nuclear energy, nuclear bomb kind of conversation of where this all plays out, but there can be a ton of benefit.
yeah. Well, TBD, we'll have to see, how that all plays out and who actually controls the AGI. So that's going to be the key.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I think we're entering into that phase where hopefully more conversations are happening around that along with the alignment, because I think personal thought going down the way that we're going with everything being corporations and privately owned, there needs to be the benefit of the people that create the product, but the tool itself, AGI, could end up turning on so quickly
Yeah.
that there's the fallout could be too much. And our current systems, I don't think our current system could handle 30-40% unemployment at one
Yeah, it
time.
cannot.
So we gotta,
We're not set up for that. Yeah. What will people do with their time, their creativity? That's going to be an interesting kind of thing for all governments to tackle. Is UBI the answer or something else like Social Security early on? Yeah. So many different options and yeah, huge impact to society. And that's like coming sooner than anyone can predict. Right? So like the demo I saw yesterday of the AI programmer, I thought we were like 5 years away from it. But it's every day there's something like so new and so revolutionary. They're, oh my gosh.
the stat I saw on that tool said that it could instantly resolve, I think 7% of GitHub open issues was like, and you're like, wow, okay. We went from 2 years ago writing terrible code to now being able to find like solutions from PRs or not PRs,
Yeah.
from issues.
And
And
not
then
only that,
start
I
doing
saw a
it. Yeah.
demo that was like picking up like Upwork jobs. Just random jobs from Upwork. Someone was like, "Hey, why don't you just like silently take up the freelance gig economy on Upwork, and that's like your revenue source. That's your funding.
That is
You don't even have to go to
incredible.
investors."
Wow. I wonder if it's taken on any tasks for us. We'll
Yeah,
find
but it's
out.
all comes down to also like the other thing, which is there's a lot of talk about like open source LLMs, and I wonder, can open source LLMs compete with the closed source ones? Because the closed source ones, they have the hardware, they have the compute, right? So that's a huge differentiator, and they have their own kind of special sauce, the alignment, the reinforcement learning, with the human in the loop, those kind of things that. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if the open source can compete. I hope it can. I hope that maybe there's new kinds of like hardware chips, like the
Grok,
which
yeah.
has language processing in it, which is much faster than the GPU. Things like that can be democratized and low cost that even open source can buy it and somehow get it funded and buy it and train their models on top of that new architecture.
The nice thing is I am seeing companies form that are basically like trying to be the AWS of GPUs and artificial intelligence. So hopefully
Hmm.
they get more of a footing and continue to receive funding to be more generally available. And I
Yeah.
will say that like I'm running Mixtral on my laptop right now because I like to do the personal development questions with it. And
Oh,
when I'm asking like really deep personal stuff and I'm saying, hey, I need you to pretend like you're Carl Jung and help me like diagnose this or walk through.
yeah.
I really don't want
Yeah.
OpenAI full of
Privacy. Yeah.
decades.
Privacy.
I think
Definitely.
we'll hopefully see some of that. But I share the concern with you that if we're on an exponential path of development here, even if the open source solutions are 1 to 2 years behind, that gap is just
Yeah. Sheesh.
enormous. And it will
Huge gap.
continue to grow significantly. So
Yeah, especially like some of the interesting things that OpenAI has been working on, like that Sora model that almost leapfrogs a lot of the physics and the physical world building algorithms that go into it. It just like bypasses all of that. And
Yeah.
just so, no, let me just predict physical interaction and simulate that just through its intuition or like through its weights and how it's built, how it's trained. That's just like mind blowing. So you're like bypassing all of that.
Yeah. That was the kind of incredible thing about it. It created beautiful videos.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it also, like you said, it's a physics engine by accident almost.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure it's trained on like Unreal Engine or something like that, but then it doesn't need the human like programmer to,
Yeah.
I got it from here. I can see how gravity works by all training me on all these videos. I cannot predict it.
It learned how gravity works, how we learn how gravity works on a daily kind of like
Mhm.
an embodied knowing of it, not like textbook knowing, but that intrinsic knowing of,
Yeah.
hey,
It's
here's what I
almost like
expect this to
intuitive.
go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then seeing that it handled object permanence gracefully. Like
hmm
we're at a moment where that was, I don't know if you saw the Will Smith eating pasta,
I
right?
saw
Like
the
that
initial. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
initial one from like just a year ago where it looked very much like a bad psychedelic trip kind of component. And
Yeah.
now we have these beautiful videos that OpenAI is producing that got Tyler Perry to pause his $800 million investment in a new
Mhm.
studio because we may not need the studio anymore.
Yeah,
So
that's crazy. Yeah.
it's,
And also the next level there is going to be that you don't have to train. It can get real time information, right? And maybe even real time video and understand that and talk back with you. That would be like the next level unlock, right? Like then the information, everything's not static. It's like actual real time and it's being trained on it.
I saw a demo yesterday of Grok handling a cold call. So
Oh,
it was a real time interaction, voice to voice type of space. And if anybody's listening, like if you did that today, there would at least be like a 5-second, 10-second
hmm
pause as the LLM catches up. But the
Yeah,
conversation was almost like,
real time.
yeah, almost real time.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I think, Grok is probably going to unlock that real timeness, the latency is going to go down, which is going to be very interesting. The funny anecdote, I was just at a restaurant a couple of days ago and I was sitting near their kitchen and they were getting orders from people for takeout and they got an AI order for somebody. I think Google had announced that capability or
That's
maybe
right.
another company has that, but an AI placed a call for a food order and they were like having a conversation with it and trying to like they didn't understand something or it said something that was not on the menu and they were like going back and forth and it was like a little bit of a robotic sounding voice and I was like, oh my gosh, this we're now in this like world a little bit dystopian where AI is going to be like interacting with like businesses and humans and like placing calls and it's going to be very
It's
interesting.
so funny. There is that like the Black Mirror aspect of it.
Yeah.
And then you look at my vision of where I want to see AI being applied is everything that you've been working on is one. And then additionally, and specifically when you said with thoughtful, that you're working on removing the administrative burden so that people can focus on the human side
Yeah.
of this, right? So like in relationship enterprises and organizations, that's what we love to like help.
Mm.
And then on the other side, for you and I and everybody else, I want to see us being fulfilled in our purpose and then using AI to strip away everything else that isn't necessary. Now, I hope when the AI has to interact with another person, that's also a positive experience for that
Yeah.
person too.
Yeah.
But in that token, getting to a time when we can be spending more time with our family, when we can be
Mhm.
doing things that light us up, when we can follow
Mhm.
that spark of inspiration,
Yeah.
and the rest of it is just handled is a
That's yeah.
beautiful.
We'll say that's the hope that like AI can amplify the human factor and allow people to expand their creativity, be more creative, learn faster, and then just free them up from all the things that we don't want to do, the grunt work, the unnecessary kind of fighting with technology. Right now, when you talk to Alexa, it doesn't like quite understand you, and they're like, I have to yell at it like 5 times. Like, "Do that." So yeah, hopefully those kind of things go away and the AI just gets it and we're like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. I got it.
Exactly. So, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience?
No, hit me up on the socials, and I'm always happy to connect and learn from each other. And then visit me on LinkedIn, Twitter, and then we can go from there. So,
Awesome. I thank you so much for being here with us today. It's been an awesome conversation and I really enjoyed this. So thank you again.
yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. It was great.
Awesome. Thank you for tuning into The Human Code, sponsored by Findustries, where we harness AI to elevate your business. By improving operational efficiency and accelerating growth, we turn opportunities into reality. Let Findustries be your guide to AI mastery, making success inevitable. Explore how at findustries.co.